and welcome back to the Vision podcast. Today, I am joined by actor Haulston Mann. How are you, Haulston?
Oh, Reese, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. I always ask every guest to give them a
Mhm.
little background to themselves, first of all.
Absolutely. Oh, my pleasure. Yeah. So I'm an actor out here in Los Angeles. I was born in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So I grew up out there till I was about 18. Went to the University of Oklahoma to study theater. Had a nice little theater career for a few years, sort of across the nation, and then ended up landing in New York. And that's sort of when film and TV started coming up for me. It led, to bigger and bigger things, and started. I started coming out to LA a whole lot for callbacks and things, and finally made the jump. Gosh, about it was last January. No, excuse me, March. Last March, I moved to Los Angeles.
So what first drew you to performing on the stage?
Mhm. Um, You know, I where I came from, it was very much we had like a storytelling culture, is what I always say. Poor folks in Arkansas, we had a storytelling culture where if there was a gathering, whoever was telling the most exciting story or, bringing up a memory that we all loved, they were getting, all the, sort of attention in that moment and were causing other folks to sort of uh, have a good time. Um, and I think early on, I got sort of that bug for entertaining in sort of that way. As a young kid, I was always playing around, playing imaginary, and putting on little skits or things like that. But acting never really seemed. It never really came up for me. Actually, went the route of I was an athlete in school, and then I got into like student council. So that's how I would kind of bring in sort of my comedy and stuff, and like I was running like school assemblies and things like that. And when I was 17, 16 or 17, my girlfriend at the time asked me to audition for a musical with her at a community theater, and it was because I also had a band in high school, and we would play at like pizza shops and coffee
Mhm.
shops. And so I was like, these two things, being in front of folks on stage in a more leadership setting and playing music. I really like to work the crowd when I'm playing music. Maybe I will have a good time with this. I was very against it at first. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a musical. And then I got in the musical, and I was sort of like the narrator character. So the second I had an audience and was getting to talk to the audience and kind of guide them along the story, it just that bug bit me. And I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Nice. Was there a person, when you were training in theatre, even when
Mhm.
you were younger, that always encouraged that was always inspiring to you, thinking,
Yes.
telling you that you can do this?
Yes. And you know what? That's one of the things that I think was a little bit of my superpower as an actor. So like I said, or kind of mentioned earlier, I came from a really, really poor area in Arkansas. And I was the first person in my family to go to college. So it was an area that like was very much kind of in its own bubble, right? And because of that, I think because of coming from a family who everybody was like, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, everybody was like, yeah, go for it, Halston. You don't have anything to lose. Um, so there wasn't that was a kind of a real big blessing that I had that, because a lot of my friends, when I got out into the world of pursuing this thing, were coming from a little bit more of a stable home, maybe with parents who were doing that smart thing of going, hey, do you really want to go? It's a kind of a rough career, maybe a plan B. And I've seen how that can be a big hurdle for a lot of extremely talented actors to get over, is that sort of, I don't know, plan B mindset, always
Mm.
have a plan B and never really like fully going for it. So I was always really lucky to have a lot of people, specifically my grandmother and my mama and my granny. That's my mom's mom and my dad's mom. They were my champions, man.
Nice. Did you ever have that time where you thought, "Oh, am I doing the right thing?"
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. It came up for a while in the first time I really, really thought about it was when I was kind of transitioning out of theater. And I'd had like a really incredible theater career, especially for a young actor. I got to do a lot of great roles right out of college. I was based in Dallas at first, so I was getting to like see what it felt like to rise sort of to the top of a certain talent pool in a pretty large metropolitan area. Um, and it went great for a while. And then around probably 2017 or 2018, and realized that I was reaching sort of the top of the types of jobs that I was getting. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a musical theater guy, so Broadway, it wasn't going to be a thing where I get cast to go be in the ensemble of a Broadway show and then might get a to step in and start leading something. And the only straight actors that like who don't do musicals that were getting onto the largest stage, the Broadway stages, were these folks who already had, TV or film credits, already had some notoriety for the most part. Uh, so I saw that Broadway was a thing that probably wouldn't happen unless one of like a movie I did kind of went big. And I got to do a play in 2020. We were actually our last 2 weeks were canceled because of COVID. But I
Yep.
was doing a play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was doing a play and I was touring it through. It was a co-production with two theaters in Florida, and it was the most fulfilling theater like experience I'd ever had. It was the theaters both really took care of us. We weren't like, living in slums or anything like that. Like we had nice housing, we had an incredible cast, an incredible script, and I realized that this was probably like even if I were to do Broadway, the level of being fulfilled um, would probably not be as great as this experience was in Florida. So that was my sort of moment of going, okay, always have really wanted to do on-screen acting. I've dabbled with it a little bit, but I haven't really, really committed myself to that pursuit because I was in a place of my theater career where I could like keep coasting, keep getting these jobs that yeah they pay for you while you're on them. They pay for a couple of months, and then you need to go find another one. And maybe it's not in on Broadway, but it's at a nice, cool community in New Hampshire or in Florida. So I was going, okay, am I ready to sacrifice this sort of steady thing to try and attain something that I want a little bit more?
Mhm.
So that was the first time I had that sort of questioning. And then when I did make the switch, there's obviously a learning curve with anything. And I think it's that way with film too. I actually don't think film and TV or film and theater acting, I think are two totally different beasts. So I knew there was going to be some time of not booking work. And it was during that time, that transition period, when I got into a really great relationship. We were living together, and it was my first time of going, oh, other people are a little bit responsible for me. Is this really the gamble that I want to take? When it was just me, I was fine gambling and stuff. But then I started thinking for the first time, oh, is this really because the career ain't gonna love you back, as much as you love it. But yes, I powered through that. So those are the two times in my life when I think I had some kind of questions around it. But now I'm so deep in this thing, I will be doing something in the entertainment industry for the rest of my life. Acting and my favorite is acting, but there's also directing, producing,
Yeah,
all kinds of great stuff.
nice. So from your theatre career, you went into the filming career. So what
Mhm.
did stage how did stage shape
Mhm.
you in the way you listen, react, and stay present when working on camera?
It's a great question. And you know, I think the main thing that kind of gave me that set me apart from a lot of the people who were coming from just going into film and training for the camera. I think the thing that it gave me was this kind of courage to do a little bit more transformational work, right? A lot of the
Mhm.
of the which which is necessary, but a lot of the training for on camera is just be you. Don't worry about playing a character. Don't worry about trying to do anything because as long as you're thinking the thoughts, the camera's going to read it. So I think when I was able to train and get to a place of doing that more truthful on camera acting, I was able to also be a little more transformative with my roles because of the sort of way that theater training gave me an understanding of my instrument, how to change my voice and make it still natural, how to change, how I'm holding myself or carrying my body. So that was the first thing where I was like, okay, this can be an asset. I also, when I first started, was like really overacting as if I was in theater still. So I, but then now that I started, when I started really getting engaged with films, I realized, oh, I can be comfortable with getting all of this blocking about moving around the living room, and we can run the camera for a 3, 4, 5 minute take, and I know how to like live in that because I was used to doing, 2 hour long plays where you're on stage the whole time, right? So that was also a great benefit for me. But there was that learning curve with figuring out how to sort of contain it.
You said that theatre and TV are very
Mhm,
different. They are very different to each other.
mhm.
Um, where do you feel more at home, though?
I think now I actually feel the most comfortable on a feature film set. That
Hmm.
is the that is the medium that I think I understand story very, very deeply within a hour to 2 hour long feature film. I get that. I can read a script and go, okay, this is probably this is probably the villain character, or this is the red herring character, and this is the scene where he looks like he's going to be the villain, but later on we're going to figure. You know what I'm saying? I can kind of
Yeah.
suss out what the story is pretty easily. Um, I did do a play last January 25. And that was the first time I had been on stage in 5 years. And it did go great. I do feel as though that was some of the best theater acting I had ever done. Um, because it was really combining the looseness and freedom that I found in film acting with the tools that I trained up through theater school and learning how to project and use my body to tell a story. So I think that one went very well going back to the stage, but I feel much more comfortable in front of a camera now.
After 5 years, was it a shock to the system going back to theatre and like thinking, oh, okay, I'm back on the
Yeah,
stage?
yeah, that's so fun. You know what? It was mostly excitement. It was mostly excitement. You get such a luxury for rehearsals with theater, which I love. Like I only think that great new things can come from getting to rehearse. However, what that led to was, or not, however, just what that led to was feeling really confident in the story. And I was like, okay, I feel pretty good about this. I feel pretty good about the acting that I'm doing. I'm excited to go, oh, yeah, let me engage with the audience. Because there's a lot of that too in live theater, whether you're breaking the fourth wall or not. um, you have to be aware of the audience and coming in with your second line as the laughter from the line before is starting to fade down. And that was the thing that was really exciting to get to work with again for the first time, is the energy of an entire audience.
So if you think about it, like with theatre, you get the instant reaction from the audience. They can give you
Hmm.
the instant laugh, the instant like emotion and like the instant things. And with
Mhm.
film, you have to wait for that reaction for when it comes
Yes.
out. Which excites you more? Is it the instant reaction or is it the reaction you have to wait for?
I think the more exciting of that is the live reception of it, the live theater experience of it, because it is engaging with my own energy as I'm continuing to create. Right. So that's
Yeah.
that's a very cool experience. It really can feel sort of like getting into like this hyper flow state, this hyper focus state, you know? So I do think that the other thing that is interesting about film and theater in this way is that, as I said, with theater, you get a lot of luxury to rehearse. So you know that you're telling a concise story by the time the curtain goes up for an audience. And also in theater, the actor is the it's an actor's medium, right? So whatever I do, whenever the curtain goes up, that's the play tonight. You know, it's suggested that we do the lines, but um, but it's an actor's medium. Whatever I do, that's the thing. Whereas in film, it's a lot more of a director's medium, and there's a lot more of I experiment with every role. With every role, I try to do something new or different, right? And with film, because it's a director's medium, there's a lot less of a understanding of, oh, what is this story going to be? Do we have a concise story? Because sometimes you're not seeing the film until until it releases. I've actually
Mhm.
got one that's releasing on the 30th. We're doing a big film festival premiere, and I was doing a big experimentation with the type of role that I was playing. I've never really uh, done a role like this on film before or on camera, and I don't know. You know, I'm sitting here going, boy, I hope that worked. I don't know if it worked or not. So there's a lot more uncertainty with it
Yeah.
with film.
And how do you stay encouraged during the quieter periods of between jobs, auditions, and like you said, releases? How do you
Mhm.
cope? How do you keep
Yeah, keep
encouraging
going.
yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Very insightful because it can get, a lot of the times when it does get slow, you start those little voices kind of start
Yeah.
cropping up, right? So yeah, the thing that I think has been most helpful for me to stay encouraged is I did a really, really stupid thing. um, I moved to Los Angeles and was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this acting and filmmaking thing work. And so I did not go get what we call a survival job, right? Which is, you're working at the table, waiting the tables, working a bar. I've done all of those. I've sold apartments. I taught archery, But I said I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to make this thing work, and I'm just going to hustle and make it work. So that was extremely stressful, but it didn't really give me the time to go. Oh my gosh, I haven't booked a role in 3 months. What am I going to do? Because I'm meeting with everybody I know out here and going, hey, you guys got anything? What's going on? You got
Mhm.
Oh, you're doing a little sketch comedy thing this weekend? Do you need hands? I can come hang out. So I'm always kind of like hustling, networking. When I don't have anything to happen and nobody else has anything happening, I might, I've just started getting into doing like little Instagram sketches and stuff like that. So I'm working with some folks on those sorts of things. So keeping myself busy and consistently creating, and even in offshoot things, I've produced out here two or three music videos since coming
Mhm.
out here. Um, and that's not me going on camera or anything, but it is still working with these folks who I probably would call up if we're doing a short film or something, or they
Yeah.
might call me up for a short film. So staying, I think, really tapped into my community and really tapped into, well, we're here to create, so let's make something. That's usually what kind of keeps me going through or keeps me from engaging with
Yeah.
those bad thoughts, you know.
How do you decide which opportunities to pursue?
Whichever one pays me the most. No. No, no, no. Um so the thing that usually I will do to is my guide is okay, what is the story? What's the story that
Mhm.
we're telling? Um and you know, that's as said earlier, the thing that lit me up about acting to begin with was I'm a storyteller at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a really exciting story, that's a big guide for me. And then if I notice that we're doing something that's very interesting and that I'm very excited by as an artist is genre bending. I think that's something that's happening across art forms right now. It's really prevalent in music. We're seeing young artists who are experimenting with blending of different genres in new ways, and we're also seeing that I think in film and TV as well. So those are two of the things I think that kind of I keep an eye out for. Is this something new and different, or is this a cohesive and strong story?
When you get a script and you see the maybe the character that you're going for, how
Mhm.
what do you look for before you start building the performance?
Absolutely, yeah. So first things first, I always yeah, I try to get as much of an idea of what happens in this movie. What is what is the story of this film or this project, right? And once you have an idea, once you have an understanding of okay, what's the whole, then you can go, all right, what does this character fulfill within this whole story, right? Is he the red herring character who looks like he's going to be the villain and then later on, comes in and is the love interest when we resolve everything? Or vice versa, is this the guy who seems like the white knight, but then we find out later on he is actually the villain who's been pulling all the strings, right? So getting a base understanding of what the puzzle piece is that character fills out in this full tapestry is the first step. And then as you go in, I read a script. If I get it before an audition,
Mm.
I'll read it around the callback phases at least once, but whenever I'm working on a role, it's 20, 30 times reading through the script and watching the movie in my head, and you start to I at least start to see like an imaginary version of the character. And then I'll find, okay, what are some aspects of people in real life or in other characters in other movies that I can kind of pull from to create this kind of Frankenstein of a character that's in my imagination. And then you zoom in one more time to moment stuff. All right. We know the story. We know who this person is within the story. Now, what is this person doing in this scene? Right? Is this the scene where I pull the wool over your eyes and lull you out of your suspicions of me? Or is this the scene where everything comes out and I have to lose control and you found out my evil plan? Right? So yeah, starting very zoomed out and slowly zooming in all the way to the scene in the moment.
So when we first chatted, you said you've done some verticals as well as
Mhm.
TV and film. Building that character, because I've spoken with a few vertical actors, building that character because it's so fast-paced verticals. Um, do you approach the same way when you come to film and verticals?
Yeah, very close, very similar. Yeah, film and verticals. I try to do a lot of the same approach, and I think yeah, the difference is with verticals, it is extremely fast paced. I mean, film and TV can be very fast paced as well, but I think verticals, it's like sort of the business model revolves around it, right? Which is cool because we love that stuff's getting made.
Yeah.
Um, However, I think the thing that I do with verticals is kind of condense the period, right? I read through the script, I get the idea of the story. A lot of times, it's interesting too because a lot of times, um, these stories are very archetypal. in nature, right?
Yeah.
And the characters are very archetypal in nature, meaning that they have a place that they're starting from, and then there might be some little offshoots. You know what I'm saying? Of what the differences are. And that was one way that I always trained as an actor. There's a technique called Michael Chekhov technique. It's very movement based, but
Mhm.
he worked with a lot of archetypes. He would have people perform like folk tales and fairy tales and things like that, and then work from, okay, well, if this, the archetype of Romeo, he is the lover, or is he the addict? So
Mhm.
if you're playing Romeo as an addict versus as a lover, that's two totally different things. So I've got experience working that way. And that's kind of what I do when I'm reading through these things. I start to pick up, all right, this is what our story that we're telling is. Okay, I'm playing the best friend to the lead, so I'm sort of his like assistant, but also his support system. And then I start to look for usually within dialogue, what are the little specific things that are different from this pure archetypal character. Okay, so this guy cracks a lot of jokes. Okay, so maybe he's like a class clown type dude who is the best friend to the lead, right? And then that's kind of what'll take my imagination down that sort of route.
Nice. So, what do you enjoy about
Mhm.
working on independent film projects? What do you enjoy the
Mhm.
most?
I think the thing I enjoy the most is on a great project that is an indie project, which, for the viewers, it's not being supported by a studio, it's not being supported by like a television network or anything
Hmm.
like that. This is an independent creator who went out into the world, found the funds to make this movie, and then brought their team together. And the thing I like is, on a great indie film set, it really is like we're an improv jazz band, and everyone is coming together to create this new thing that is the film, the movie, right? And I think a great director sees that, comes onto set, and goes, okay, the bass guitarist in this indie jazz band is going to play bass guitar way better than I ever will, but I can give the tempo that we're going, right? And I can tell the drums when to come in for their big solo moment. But all of these independent creatives are doing their thing together to create this new work of art, which is the movie.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of times the experience I love the most on films, when there is that sort of independent nature to it. You really get to come in and be a part of the team, as opposed to sometimes when you get, for instance, and this was a great experience for me, but like on Law and Order, I did some time on Law and Order SVU, and great show, awesome people, but you get hired, here's your scene. We'll do a cast read through, and then you come to set. The PA takes you to your dressing room or to your trailer, and you sit there. You go over your lines, put your clothes on. You get ushered onto the set when it's time to do the scene. You might be there for a couple hours, but you're not really a part of the team that's making the thing,
Hmm.
right? They're going, stand here, say it this way. Now you're going to look over here and then say it again or whatever, right? It's a little bit less of that collaborative nature.
I love Law and Order SVU, so
Yes,
one of my
yes. Oh,
one of my
I grew
favorite
up with it.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling him I was with Ice T the whole time. And I was like, hey man, I just want you to know I grew up watching you. And he was like, thanks, man.
I think Mariska Hargitay is just
It was such a
like,
I was so upset that I didn't get to meet her when I was shooting. But
oh,
everyone that I've ever known who's worked with her is like, she is so kind. She'll like come up and be like, "Hey, do you want to take some pictures before you leave?" You know what I'm saying?
nice, nice. Um, so how does collaboration change when everyone on set of an
Mhm,
independent film is working with limited time, like you said,
mhm,
limited budget, limited resources? How does collaboration change?
mhm, mhm. And it's different for every set. It's going to be the vibe or the atmosphere on set is going to be dictated by the director and the producers, right?
Mhm.
So it's different for everyone, but sometimes you will have this very collaborative nature where we're going, okay, so we need to have a moment where we go from the living room into the kitchen over there. What are we gonna do? And then the actor might go, oh well, what I could do like this and go around here and then make a little joke and then go in there. And that kind of stuff is way more open to happening on some of these indie sets. Now, the other thing that I always cut, because I coach young actors as well,
Mhm.
and I always say, look, the most helpful thing that you can do as an actor is be out of the way. A lot of times when you're first getting into the industry, everybody wants to like give out some options to help solve whatever problems going on set. And a lot of times that can be a little overwhelming and kind of get in the way a little bit more. So it takes a little while before you understand how to effectively work within a collaborative film set, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but that is sort of the thing that I love the most about it is there's a lot of problem solving in the moment, and there's a whole group of folks who, if we all know how to navigate the atmosphere, right, without a way of without like getting in each other's way, we can all come together and create something really cool.
What did working on projects like How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps, A Home for Christmas, and Harmony's Pet teach you about trusting the creative process?
Those are great ones to those are some of my favorite ones. And actually, Almoni's Pot is I'm talking with, well, I don't know if I can say it. There might be more of Halmoni's Pot very, very soon. Um, anyway, um, so those three projects specifically. So Home for Christmas was that was the first feature that I ever led. I was ever a lead on, and it was a very last minute booking. I booked it like the day before they started shooting. I got their first day of shooting. I wasn't on set for.
Okay.
So that was my day of like reading through the script and figuring out the character and everything, right? Um, but and then I came on, and like I said, it was my first time stepping into that sort of role, leading a feature, and that was huge for me in starting to have an understanding of, for the first time, really navigating a character's journey and their arc throughout an entire feature. And we shoot these things all mixed up. It's rarely in chronological order
Yeah.
that we shoot the scenes. So understanding that character arc before shooting anything so that okay, my first day is this, second to last scene. So this is where I am in my story. Um, so that was a huge lesson I learned from A Home for Christmas. And then with How to Start a Cult, that one, I think the greatest thing that I learned was really stepping into what it meant to be the lead actor on a feature. And what I mean by that is, I wasn't just showing up and doing the thing, right? I was surviving on How to Start or on A Home for Christmas, right? I came in
Yeah.
and I was going, okay, let me just see if I can survive this thing and get a cohesive story on camera. But with How to Start a Cult, I was really kind of stepping into that role of, no, this is we're gonna make this thing, and I'm gonna be a pretty big voice in the collaboration of what this is turning into. And I really really want to give praise and gratitude to Lou Temple. Lou Temple is an actor who he was on How to Start a Cult with me. He one of his big things was he played a character called Axel on The Walking Dead, and he's done like a billion movies. He's done stuff for Quentin Tarantino. He's been around the block and he's been doing the thing for a minute, right? And he really took me under his wing in that movie, and sort of mentored me. And okay, so here's what's going to be expected of you in this leadership position as the lead actor. You need to welcome people to set. You're also creating what this atmosphere is going to be. So if you come in and you're not talking to people and you're all closed off, well, it's going to feel like a little bit more of a kind of stifling, a little bit more hermetic of a atmosphere than if you are welcoming everybody, making sure we're having a good time playing around. When some of the actors who were like the cult members when they showed up, right, and it's their first day on set, uh, and if they're sitting around watching, I go in to do a scene. Maybe I want that movie had a lot of improvisation happening in it.
Mhm.
So when they first came to set, I made sure that when they were watching, I do a little loose improv and stuff like that in this first scene that people are watching to go, hey, everybody, this is kind of how we're working. You know what I'm saying? Um, so Lou gave me a great understanding of how to really step in and fill out that the shoes that are being the lead on a feature. Um, and then with How Money's Pot, that one, gosh, what a fun little role. It was actually so it was a short film, and they were using it to fund a feature length version. That's all I'll say there. But they were raising funds for a feature. Um, but with that, I think really the experience was there. Uh, it was a great role. I really felt confident in, oh, I know how to do this sort of dirtbag, like
Yeah.
bully with a heart of gold, who, yeah. I understood the character very well, and I really let myself. That one was I was experimenting a lot with really diving into that. Actually happened before Home for Christmas and I
Okay.
started Cult. And so that was my first time really diving in and going, you know what? Even if I like look weird or whatever for doing like prep stuff, I have to be like screaming in this next scene. And for the comedy to land, and I need to do this like warm up thing or this warm up exercise before take. And so I was really in that one, um, letting myself go there for the first time. That was the first on camera thing that I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, that I'm
Mhm.
that's a thing that I can like package and sell. Um, so I love that. It was also my first time working with it's Almoni is like grandma in Korean, and it was a very a lot of Korean Americans were on that set. It's a the whole story is a Korean American experience
Mhm.
film. Um, and so that was my first time working with a lot of folks with a different culture from mine own. So that was extremely cool. And I actually just got to do, we talked about it a little bit, but I just got to do a TV series in Korea. I just got back from it a few days ago.
Yeah.
So and that was even more of that, immersed into a culture just so different from my own. So I think that was the thing that was most exciting for me on How
Yeah.
Many Spot.
So how important is it finding the right creative partners for building work?
Extremely, extremely.
Hmm.
And it's also funny because I mean, when you're out here and you're hustling and you're an unknown actor, right? And I'm only just now getting to a point in my career where like a few people know me,
Hmm.
so but I'm still very much an unknown actor. And when you're out here and you're kind of hustling for anything that, like I said, I came out and was like, I'm going to pay my bills doing this, right? So first and foremost, I was getting on with anybody and everybody. However, every time that I get done working or anytime I work on something, I do take names of, okay, this person was really cool. I want to work with them in the future. This person, they don't necessarily want to work with them in the
Hmm.
future, right? They don't seem like they're maybe on top of their stuff, right? But I do keep a list of those sorts of things. And it is the absolute most important guiding principle whenever I'm producing. So whenever
Hmm.
I'm building the team, that's when that really comes up for me. Um, because that's the thing that sets a lot of my sets whenever I produce and direct, apart from some sets, is I know that this is going to be a cool group of people. Um, so and my stuff that I've made is very like low budget, small projects. But I won't do. I don't. I haven't ever done auditions on my stuff. I've only done personal invitations
Hmm.
for performers and things like that, because that's the most important thing when you get on a set. Is, hey, we're going to be here. We're going to be working very hard. It's going to be long hours. We should all be having a fun time, because this is we create good things when people are having fun. And it's the same with as an actor. You're going to find these directors who you trust and who okay, if I go do something really stupid and really take a big swing and try to do, improvise a joke in this moment, and it falls flat on my face, and it's not funny, and it maybe it ruined a take, I don't know, but I got to be I got to feel safe to do that, to take that risk, and not like the director's going to come up and go, make fun of my joke or
Yeah.
chastise me or something like that. Because if I'm waiting to get chastised or made fun of, well, then that's going to squash all of my creativity.
Do you feel independent films give actors more freedom to experiment?
I do, I do, and I think it's two. There's two reasons for it. I think that just beyond, not even talking about how we're all going to be collaborating together or working, but beyond that, is indie film is a there are a few films that really like, kind of grow above the crop, right? Like Obsession,
Hmm.
Iron Lung, when that came out, Daddy Long Legs. So there are these indie projects that are cropping up, and the mass global audience is starting to turn their attention to more indie projects now. Ever, for the overwhelming majority, a whole lot of people are not going to see it. You know, it's not going to be like millions of people who watch the movie, right? Some of them are on YouTube, some of them are on, even the ones that I've got on streamers right now. It's not a crazy amount of folks, right?
Hmm.
Which is a good thing for actors when I think, when we're building up our career, because it goes, hey, look, take a big swing, man. You're not going to get a meme made out of you. You know what I'm saying? If I was on one of these massive movies and I take a big swing and it doesn't come out right, I might get turned into a meme. And then I might get known as the guy who, like, whatever, can't say his lines, or whatever it happens to be, right? So the stakes are a little bit lower, right, in indie film. So as an artist, I take that and I go, okay, great. I'm going to really swing at something different. That's what I did with this movie, The Passenger, which is about to come out. Um, it was, we're at a certain budget level, I'm making a certain amount of money, and a big part of the kind of payment back for me was going, okay, they've set up this system. I'm going to get to go in it and take a big swing at a very experimental character, right? And then we'll see if it works. But I'm not going to go on to Law and Order SVU and do an experimental performance. I'm going to do something that I know I can sell. I got that bully dirtbag thing or whatever, right? Um, so it gives you that freedom just in and of itself. And then yeah, like I said, a lot of the times on indie film sets, you'll get we have to be a little more creative. And sometimes it comes from, hey, we can't afford to do the crane, to
Hmm.
hire a crane to do the camera movement here. So we're going to do something experimental, and we're going to make it like you're carrying your phone camera or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You do get that sort of stuff cropping up too.
You directed something called The Cottage.
Yes.
What what made The Cottage feel like the right project to direct?
Mhm. Well, it was, and that was my first time directing a film, right? And it's a 10-minute short film. We played at some festivals. Very fulfilled with that movie. Um, I had directed a play before that, and then other than that, I hadn't really done any directing. However, I was an acting coach. I ran a self-tape studio. It was actually one of the first independent self-tape studios that wasn't tied to like an acting school in New York City.
Hmm.
So I ran that. I was coaching actors at all levels. And then two of my dear friends who I regularly coached at my studio, um, they came in and said, "Hey, we're looking for a director for this short film that we're wanting to do." And they were going to be the actors in it, right? Um, and they asked me if I'd like to direct. And I knew that that was going to be, I could say no, but if I wanted to investigate this for myself, this role, um, this was the one to do it on because it was these folks who they had some experience putting together some independent productions. So I it wasn't just going to be on me to figure it out. And then they also were deep deep friends with me. I was very,
Hmm.
it was a long time friendship with both of them. They're actually married now. I was their best man at their wedding. Like it was like these are like some of my closest friends, right? So I realized that wasn't going to get another opportunity to experiment and try this thing out
Hmm.
with people who love me more, right? That I'm going to be safer and more loved, and will still love me at the end if we fail, you know. So that was a big part of coming on to the cottage. And I can remember talking to them and saying like, "Hey, do you guys mind if I like really take a crack at directing this thing and like as opposed to just coming on set to be your like on set acting coach?" But I think that's what they were asking at first was we direct it, but really we just be on set and
Hmm.
coach our scenes. And I was like, well, yeah, I would love to, but can I like really take us? Can I like come up with the aesthetic and like talk to the camera, the cinematographer about creating a visual language for our film. Um, and they really let me go wild with that. And I think that movie came out better than it had any right to come out. We made that thing with like a cup of coffee and $2,000, in a weekend, right? And so it shouldn't have been at all what it came out to be. And I'm very proud. I'm very proud of how that came together.
Did directing change the way you think about performance and storytelling?
100%. 100%. Um, so as an actor, I recommend to all actors to try directing at least once because even like a 5 minute short film that you shoot over the weekend on your phone. Um, but really approach it, do your prep work and everything, and really try it out. Because what it did for me as an actor was it gave me a more full understanding of what my job actually is in given moments. So, for instance, say there's a scene where, I go open the door and we see who's knocking, right?
Mhm.
If we go and do that, and then it wasn't planned to get this, but we shot the scene, and then the director says, "Oh, actually, can you go back? I just want to get you opening the door again." An actor might think, "Oh, I wasn't living in the moment in the way that he wanted to me to. Let me see if I can, find more a way to access more anxiety around who's knocking on the door, or let me try to be more it immediately puts you into a headset of going, what did I do wrong? How can I fix it?" And that usually means you're going to be overacting
Yeah.
if you're in that headset. However, if we pop over into the director's brain, they're not thinking about performance at all. They're just going, no, no, I need to see the hand grab the doorknob so that we can cut to the next scene of it opening, right? So they're putting together the whole story. And I learned that it's not always, you start to have an understanding now on set as an actor okay, this one isn't about thing right now. This is about he needs this picture so he can get to the next picture in his story. So like things like that will start to illuminate for you. Um, and it really takes it only takes pressure off your shoulders as an actor to have that experience trying of directing something. And then with storytelling, it also lit me up so much. The idea of storytelling, through your visual language, through your pictures, and how can we, instead of going, okay, I need this scene where, you know, we're with the antagonist and the protagonist, and they're arguing and the protagonist is losing. But then as a director, you get to go, okay, how do I want to shoot this? Oh, well, what if we shoot it where the protagonist is up here and we've got a really low angle on them so it looks like they're lording over the camera. And then when we cut back to the protagonist, maybe they're at the bottom of the screen and they look very small. So you start to get to new tools for telling a story, right? Which is the camera. And that's not something that I dabbled with. And boy, oh boy, was it cool. It felt like getting to use the entire box of crayons.
Do you see directing as a separate path or just an extension of your work as a storyteller?
I think if I was really, really pursuing it, 100%, it would be a separate path. And that's
Mhm.
you get a lot of folks who just pursue that. Um, and my my greatest joy is acting and playing pretend.
Mhm.
So that's my path that I'm investing in, and I am approaching directing as more of a, when these opportunities come up, yes, I will offshoot and go do these things. I am very interested in trying to, if not direct, at least produce a film that has been kind of kicking around in my head. So I'm sure that it will come up, and I like to do it, but it's very much not the where I put my time and energy on my
Mhm.
pursuits.
Nice. How have your roots and personal background shaped the kind of stories you want to tell?
Mhm, mhm. Well, first off, I think that my background, really quickly, I'll give you a real brief moment. So a big part of my background is that when I was growing up, um, as I said, in Arkansas, a lot of poverty in that area, and also while I was growing up, there was a very big opiate and meth problem in that area, right? And so actually, my parents, this is a happy story, but my parents, when I was growing up, they were very, very much in the thick of meth addiction. And it was, in and out of jails, in and out of rehabs. My dad went to prison for a while when I was in high school. And my brother and I were kind of bouncing around to different, sometimes with grandparents, sometimes with friends, but a very unstable childhood. And for whatever reason, it was always, we knew from a young age that it was a sickness, and that addiction was a sickness, right? My brother and I don't think harbored much resentment towards our parents, more than pity. But my mom, I can remember at a young age her telling me one time, "You got to laugh to keep from crying," and
I always say that. I always say that. If you can't
okay,
laugh,
yes,
if you can't laugh, you'll end up crying. That's
yes, yes, right. So that's
yeah,
kind of what our approach was like, well, what else are you gonna do?
yeah.
So it actually really, I credit a lot of that to building up my sense of humor and my ability to do comedy. But they have a beautiful story. When I was 17, my mom stopped using, and a few years later, my dad did. She runs a faith-based women's rehab center. She's been doing that for over 10 years now. She like is like a community voice. She got a community voice award. So they have a beautiful story. I'm so proud of them. Um, but also, that led to uh, kind of investing in that thing of going around, looking around, and going, "Hey, there's got to be more than this to life, and I'm going to go try to find it."
Mhm.
And everybody going, "Yeah, go try to find it, man. You ain't got nothing to lose." So I actually one of my favorite, or one of the things that I'm trying to do right now and manifest is I'd love to play an addiction role, like a role that revolves around an addiction story.
Mhm.
I think that's something that I really would like to try out. Also, I also really have a soft spot for like lower class kind of poverty stories, that sort of thing. And when you get to like that gritty sort of, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Mud. That was a really influencing movie to me. It was set in Arkansas, and it just
Mhm.
illuminated this gritty culture that we don't really get to see in the mainstream a whole lot. So yeah, I think that those sort of things are big ways that it influenced me as an artist. I also am very intrigued with the exploration of masculinity,
Mhm.
both in a healthy way and in a toxic way. Because I grew up in a very toxically masculine um, culture. However, there are also some like healthy things I think that you can get in. There's ways to portray healthy masculine, right? So that's another thing that I think my background really made me excited about as an artist.
Mhm. What role does fear play in the creative process?
Hmm. Um, it stinks because whenever you're fearful of something, I always say, whenever you're fearful, that's how you know that's the direction you got to go in, right? Um, so yeah, there's a lot of that. I use it as a compass a lot of the times, and it's interesting too. The ability to, I don't know, when you're working professionally after a while, the fears around rejection and things like that sort of, I think, or at least in my experience, they've gotten a little bit lighter. They're not as powerful as they used to be. When I go into an audition, I'm not shaking in my boots any longer
Mhm.
because I've been doing this for, since 2015, and that gets that lessons. But there's this whole other fear around, okay, well, now I'm in my 30s and I'm still, you know what I'm saying? You're still doing engaging in this career that's like kind of playing the lottery. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm putting everything on. So there's a different type of fear. There's more of a personal, personal fear of things around, oh, well, do people back home in Arkansas, are they like think of me and go, wow, that's embarrassing that he's in his 30s now and he's still trying to play pretend. You know what I'm saying? So those kind of thoughts will come up sometimes, right? And anything else on fear? Oh, well, I mean, sort of the same as the compass thing, it giving you direction for where to go. I was terrified to move to LA, but it was the right move for my career. I was also dealing with right now. Kind of a lot of fear about the passenger. I don't really. I've invited a lot of friends to come to this premiere, and I took a real big swing. I was nervous while I was doing it. I was like, man, if this doesn't, in the passenger, I play a character who's carrying a lot of like PTSD to a crippling effect of his life, and that's totally different from what I usually play characters. I specialize with characters who are very outwardly charismatic and confident, or at least loudly portraying false confidence, right?
Mhm.
This was a very closed off character, very burdened by PTSD. And so while I was doing it, I was nervous. I was like, am I looking like making fun of something, or am I like looking like I'm not. Here's a funny one, a
Mhm.
fear thought. I remember going, am I actually, truthfully, like going through fear in this scene? Or am I just making my face look a certain way, you know, right? Those are the kind of thoughts that like come into your head a little bit when you're like working in that sort of way of taking a big swing. And you have to like go, hey, that's an intrusive thought, get out of my head, you know? But yeah,
Nice.
fear's always there. It's a big part. And
Yeah.
I think it is whenever you're pursuing anything that you want to do in life. Anything worthwhile is going to be, I think, surrounded by the fears of what if it doesn't work.
I can tell you about this thing. Fear.
I, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, I bet it was really anxiety inducing when you first started getting into it, right? Or a lot of like imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah,
That's
pretty much.
yeah,
Pretty
exactly.
much.
100%. Same.
Um, so how would you describe your creative identity right now?
Yes. Um, so I think right now I'm starting to get known a little bit as this kind of like a leading character actor, right? Um, and as I mentioned before, being able to do these sort of more transformational roles, um, like for instance, if you put the role from How to Start a Cult next to my role in Fight Dirty, if you saw Fight Dirty,
Hmm.
right, and then next to this role in The Passenger, these guys are totally three completely different people, right? And I think that's something that I'm like starting to get as a like, oh, this is what Halston sells, you know, because that's what this is. Each actor is a business owner, and and
Yeah.
and the product they sell is like Haulston Mann actor, right? So I'm getting known as this as a person who does these transformational things, and a person who I'm pretty usually expected on a lot of my stuff for my improving. So I do a lot of like loose improv type things, shake up other scenes. I was in one project where the director wrote me into the rest of the project because I had like improvised through a scene, and he would bring me in and go, "Can you just shake them up a little bit? Throw some curveballs at them." So I do that. I do that quite a bit. Um, and then yeah, I think the playful, uh, low stakes kind of vibe that I bring to things. It is I approach a set and I go, hey man, I I aspire um to show up as a professional that is going to solve problems for the team, but the end of the day, we're making movies. We're not doing a liver transplant or anything, or brain surgery, or sending people to the moon, right? So the stakes are pretty low, and I think I get quite a bit of return work because people go, "Oh, it was so easy to work with Halston. He was a real professional, knows how to hit his mark, knows where the camera's at, how to give us the line, and do like the technical things. But he's also playful and kind of an aura of like de-stressing a lot of times. Um, whenever I can be. I mean, there's some roles too where I do have to go sit in a corner and be like, hey, I gotta focus right now.
When you think about the next chapter of your career, what feels most important to protect and pursue?
So, next portion of my career, I think we're about to see, or I think I'm about to see, uh, a little bit of a shift. Ideally, a little bit of a like ear hop in the productions that I'm working on. Oh, because I've got, probably at the end of this year or early next year, I've got this movie One Wicked Night coming out, which I did with Evan Adams. I don't know if you. Oh, I don't think he does a lot of interviews, but he's
Hmm.
real big in the vertical space. But I did that movie with Evan Adams,
Hmm.
One Wicked Night. I think that's going to be a big one. I think that people are going to get some eyes on that. And then I just finished this TV show in Korea. It's a 10 episode K drama. It's going to be on a major, you know, streaming platform. If you throw one of the names out, it is like 1 in 4 chance that it's that one, right? But but it's a major streaming platform. It's a TV series that I'm in every episode except for one, and that's coming out. One Wicked Night is coming out, and then we just had Fight Dirty earlier this year, as well as The Passenger, which I don't think The Passenger is going to do a lot. I think it might be around the size of like a sort of cult, you
Mhm.
know, in terms of how many eyes get on it. But with all of these, One Wicked Night and then the Korean project, those are two of the biggest things that I've done so far. And so I think those are going to come out, and I'm going to get a little bit more eyes on my work, which is always the thing that makes productions want to
Yeah.
cast you when people watch your stuff, right? So I think we'll see that, and I'm really excited to. A lot of times I've noticed actors who've been like colleagues of mine have gotten into bigger projects as smaller roles, right? And then they might work pretty regularly on TV, but it's these, it's smaller, one line roles, one scene roles, which is great, and you can have a whole career on that. Not knocking that. But the thing I love the most as an artist is, getting to tell those full story arcs and be a part of that. And I'm really interested to see now that now that I've done so many features and led, a handful of them, um, how that background is utilized if I truly am stepping into a new tier
Mhm.
of projects due to more eyes being on my work, right? I think it could lead to some really cool roles and to some people kind of trusting me a little bit more with larger roles in larger budget films, because of my track record of leading these films at smaller budgets. So I'm really excited to see what happens there with that. And then there was a second part to the question. What do you uh wasn't there? Was there what are you excited about in the future?
uh,
Okay,
yeah,
maybe not.
for protecting in like
Mm.
in your career.
Oh, yes, that was great. I'm glad that you remembered that. I did want to talk about that. So the thing I would really, really love to protect is this sort of vision as this leading character actor or kind of transformational actor, right? Um, when I was coming up, a lot of the training was find the thing that you do really well that nobody does like you, and then do that
Mhm.
and be the guy who be the guy who they call to be a snarky office assistant, right? Or the guy to be, you know, the dirtbag with a heart of gold or whatever, right? You find your kind of pigeonholes and you make your career off that. And that wasn't as exciting to me. I wanted to be a Gary Oldman or a Sam Rockwell. Like I wanted to transform, right? Um, and I'm finally at the point where I'm getting that. I had been in this area of like playing a lot of like gym bros and like that kind of like bro humor. And that was my thing. But now that I've gotten to do a few more movies, there's a little bit more breadth in the range that I've gotten to showcase. So I'm really hoping that as I step into this new tier of eyes being on me, that I can maintain that sort of
Mhm.
image of being this transformational nickel actor, leading character actor, and not get kind of boiled down into dumb hunk or dirtbag with a heart of gold. While I do love playing those roles, I would like the opportunity to have a breadth of roles and types.
If someone discovers your work
Mhm.
years from now, what do you hope they feel or understand about you as a storyteller?
I hope that the joy comes across. I hope that the joy that I have in all of getting to do this, getting to spend my life, you know, invest my life in a career of playing pretend. I hope that comes across, and I hope they that it in turn inspires joy in whoever's watching it. Right? I
Yeah.
think that's a thing that can happen pretty often.
So before we go into my final two segments for every episode, I just want to ask one final question. If an actor who is still pursuing that career, what advice would you give them?
Mhm, mhm. Let's see here. I think the advice I would give is to the very boiled down version I would give is to try to do your best to pursue the things that are bringing you joy and spread joy. Um, that those are going to be the two things I think that really help a career, or at least they have in mind. Right?
Mhm.
If I'm pursuing something that I love, I'm going to be the best version of myself when I get to do it on set. And when I go to set, if I'm focused on spreading joy, I'm not going to be a turd and like a pain in the butt for everybody. I'm not going to cause problems. I'm going to solve problems. And I'll probably build my own, uh, or bring some people into my own filmmaking community or my own network, right?
Nice. So it's time to find out who inspires you and what you love to watch. And this is who are your visions?
Yes. Okay.
So
So, yes.
first one is visions of TV and movies. So an actor, an actress,
Mhm.
and TV and movie you love.
Okay. So, right now, television wise, I I think one of the best shows I've seen in a while is called The Lowdown. Um, don't remember what channel it's on. It might be on,
Mhm.
might be an FX show, but it's called The Lowdown. It was created by Sterling Harjo. It stars Ethan Hawke, and Sterling did Reservation Dogs a few years back. He is an Oklahoma um, TV creator, filmmaker, and he is doing some of the most exciting series work that I've seen in a really long time. And he's doing that thing that I mentioned that was very inspiring to me of illuminating these different communities that we don't see very often, which, in a lot of his work, it is the Native American communities in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's got a soft spot for me. I went to school there. So big
Mhm.
fan of the Lowdown. Here's my big three are Sam Rockwell, Gary Oldman, and Michelle Williams. Ah, they're just incredible, incredible inspirations to me.
Nice. Music. Is there an artist at the moment that is constantly on replay?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm a huge music guy. I love finding new music and exploring that. And one band that I really am interested in right now, they're called Like Roses, and they're based out here in California, but they've got a really cool sound. There's a lot of this emo rock that I like grew up listening to. I grew up like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy and all that stuff, right? So they've got this emo rock thing going on as a contemporary band, and they're blending it with stuff like math rock, which is a lot of
Mhm.
very technical guitar sounds, and then a little bit of like metal as well with some of their drumming and guitar riffs. So I really think that they're doing some cool genre experimenting, and highly recommend them to anybody. They're also like they're doing okay, but they're still like a coming up and coming band, right? So
Yeah.
highly recommend Like Roses.
So you've done five verticals. Can you describe your time in the vertical space in
Mhm.
one word or a phrase?
Yes. Um, experimentation.
Nice.
Experimentation. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
I think that as an industry, they're experimenting a lot. I've gotten to experiment with my roles a lot. And then some of them, like Fight Dirty, came out and it was better than I ever could have hoped it would have been. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
might be one of my favorite performances I've done so far, you know? So it's a real fun experimentation.
Nice. Um, an author or book that you love to read?
Mhm. Right now, I'm in a chokehold by the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. It's by Matt Denneman, and it is just I'm a big video game nerd. I play Dungeons and Dragons every Monday night for like 7 or 8
Nice.
years, right? And this book really gives the experience of playing a video game or a tabletop role playing game, while also having some great comedy and some really deep interpersonal challenges for the characters as well.
There's another one of the visions, and that's vision of theatre. So a show,
Mm.
a theatre actor or actress that you love.
Okay, let me think for 1 second. This is a good one. Um, I think, you know, this is okay. And I just saw this on Broadway when I was just in New York last week, and I saw this on Broadway while I was there. But the show, it's so crazy that this show has such a deep connection for me. It's the Rocky Horror Show. Okay. All right. And I'm not a musical theater guy, like I said, but for a few productions I played back when I was doing theater, I played Rocky. And it was and I've probably done over 100 performances of that role.
Mhm.
And then getting to watch it on Broadway, that was super fun. But it's a piece that really capitalizes on the thing that I think makes theater special, and it's what we talked about. The I call it communion with the art with the audience, but we're all in communion. We're all sharing energy together, and the
Yeah.
Rocky Horror Show just leans so hard into that with the callbacks. They're actually interacting with you, and it's all about having a fun time, accepting people who are different.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, those midnight showings were one of the only places that a lot of openly queer folk could go and be openly queer was at the midnight production.
Yeah.
So if you're performing in it, you're getting these, older folks who are going, "Hey, this was the only place I felt safe to be me when I was growing up." And it's really special to get to be a part of that experience for people. So I have a huge soft spot in my heart for the Rocky Horror Show, even though I would not say that I'm a musical theater guy.
Nice. And now it's time for our quick fire round, this or that.
Okie dokie.
So I will give you two options. You pick which best describes you.
All right.
Let's go. First one, tea or coffee?
Ooh, coffee.
iPhone or Android?
Phone.
Nice. Sunset or sunrise?
Unsaid.
Road trip or direct flight?
Road trip. Every
Nice.
time.
Text message or phone call?
Oh my God, neither. Phone call, phone call.
Horror movies or action movies?
Think horror. Think horror.
Video games or board games?
Video. That's the hardest one so far.
Morning shoot or night shoot?
Nights.
Give up social media forever or give up TV and movies forever?
Social media. Easy.
And the final one, adventure weekend or relaxation retreat?
Relaxation. I'm craving a relaxation retreat. I've gotten to have some adventure weekends recently. I'm craving relax.
And that is it, Holston. That is the podcast done. That is the episode done. And I thank you for joining me.
Reese, it was just a pleasure getting to chat with you today. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's been amazing. All the insights you've given has just been brilliant. So thank you.